Prime Minister Keir Starmer cautions police to focus on solving crime rather than enforcing censorship. You know things must have gone too far. And that's exactly what's happened overnight. Comedy writer Graham Linehan, creator of Father Ted and the IT Crowd, says he was arrested at Heathrow Airport for 3 tweets criticising trans ideology. Linehan, who's been a vocal critic of transgender activism, says he was hauled away by 5 police officers and released on condition that he stays away from Twitter. Joining me now is Sky News host Rowan Dean. Rowan, thanks for your time tonight. 5 police officers arresting a guy for 3 tweets. What on earth did he say?
Well, that's a good question, James. And we now know, or we have an inkling, of what a hate crime actually is, or what hate speech actually means. We've all wondered for a few years now, what are these non-crime hate crimes, or whatever they call them in the UK. By the way, all this stuff will come to Australia as well, so people better get ready for it. But from the 3 tweets that have been published, I assume they're accurate, we now know what a hate crime is. The first thing, James, is whatever you do in a tweet, don't use the word hate, because that clearly is a hate crime. In this instance, Graham Linehan said, homophobes and misogynists, I hate them, and he's used the expletive as well, F them. But then you go, well, hang on, I thought we were supposed to hate misogynists. Didn't Julia Gillard make a whole speech about how evil misogynists were and how evil homophobes are? So why is saying I hate them a hate crime? Clearly, using the word hate by itself is a hate crime. So I just warn any kids out there, don't put on a tweet or Instagram or whatever, you know, I hate Brussels sprouts or I hate doing my homework or anything in that, because our eSafety Commissioner might deem that that is a hate crime. So that's the first tweet. The second one is a bit more intriguing. And this, James, is an aerial shot. It appears to be an aerial shot, a drone shot or a helicopter shot of a large crowd. And that crowd presumably is some kind of transgender or pride march or something like that. I couldn't quite tell what it was. But the caption underneath it is Graham Linehan says something like, I can smell the crowd from here. Now, supposing you're in a helicopter or a manned drone or something or other and above a large crowd, is it really a hate crime to say you can smell the crowd below? Let's assume it's a transgender crowd. Now, I've never been hovered above a transgender crowd at any distance, so I don't quite know what the smell would be. But it's either a positive or a negative. It either smells good or it smells bad. So if it smells bad, he's saying, this smells bad. That's a hate crime. What if they're all fragrant transgenders and it smells wafting of perfume and roses? Is it still a hate crime? Clearly it is, according to these coppers, 5 of them. The third tweet, and this is a pretty interesting one. The third one was advice to girls or women who are in a sports room or a toilet or whatever, and a bloke dressed as a woman comes in, and Graham's advice was to punch them in the bollocks, quote, end quote. Now, how can that be a hate crime when that is what every single schoolgirl or woman who does a self-defense course, martial arts, or any of those things is taught? If a bloke comes at you, kick him in the bollocks. So we've got 3 instances which the cops, 5 coppers, as we said, deemed to be hate crimes. Graham Linehan bundled off, he arrives back in the country, and there you have it. Now, this is it's funny, but it is so disturbing. Now, he's been let off with, don't go back on Twitter. So this is the equivalent of bail. Now, don't go back on Twitter. But James, this is the madness that we are heading to in Australia. Once you start having a government authority or the cops looking at your Facebook posts, your tweets or whatever, interpretation of the words or the meanings becomes the key to whether you have committed a crime or not. It's terrifying.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think you nailed that, Rowan, and thank you. So I know what not to tweet now. I want to talk to you about a bizarre moment at a Coldplay concert. A couple of fans were invited on stage during the show in London at the weekend, which is nice. But things got very awkward when lead singer Chris Martin found out the pair were from Israel. Here's how it went down.
Where did you come from today? From Israel. Okay, well. Okay, well, listen. I'm going to say this. I'm very grateful that you're here as humans, and I'm treating you as equal humans on earth, regardless of where you come from or don't come from. Thank you for being here. We're grateful, and thank you for being loving and kind. Although it's controversial, maybe, I also want to welcome people in the audience from Palestine, because we have a belief that we're all equally human. And thank you for being here.
Well, thank God Chris Martin clarified that Jews are in fact humans. But Rowan, what did you make of that exchange?
It was disgusting. It was creepy. It was repulsive. Now, I'm not a huge fan of Coldplay's to begin with. They had one good song, Yellow. The rest of them are unlistenable. A Coldplay concert these days, you seem to enter at your peril. If you happen to be having an affair with your HR lady and you're a CEO, well, that's the end of your career over. If you happen to be having some other kind of illicit goings on with a member of the crowd, that you happen to be caught on one of his cameras, he seems to have... Obviously, no one wants to listen to Coldplay music. That goes without saying. So you go along to a concert to spy on other people and see what they're up to, and they project it up onto the screen, and this is all a huge laugh for everybody. And now that that gag has kind of run its course, what Chris Martin and Coldplay are doing are inviting members of up onto the stage. Now, that's all well and good. I mean, it's not exactly that original. It kind of has happened in rock concerts in the past. But the creepiness and the repulsiveness of this... As soon as he asked them where they're from and the girls said they're from Israel, he immediately started this weird kind of equivocation about, oh, well, we welcome all humans. Yes, we're all human beings here together. By saying that, he was in fact dehumanizing these girls, dehumanizing them for being Israeli, and by extension, one would assume dehumanizing them because he presumed, or one assumes they were Jewish. Now, that is sickening, and the response on social media has been, quite rightly, people are appalled and horrified. So there's that. Now, I know, okay, he's in the middle of a concert, he's not quite looking out for what he's saying, et cetera, so cut him a bit of slack there. But the thoughts that went through his head, or appeared to go through his head, to somehow kind of justify talking to Israelis and having them up on the stage was utterly repulsive. And I hope he has a long, hard think about just how disgusting that was. But he then doubled down and had to prove, oh, the classic moral equivalence, here we go, virtue signaling, oh, and all say hello to all the people from Palestine out in the audience, and away we go, the moral equivalence thing. It's so sickening why any people would go along to one of those concerts. And as I say, people, particularly Israeli people, but all sensible people are revolted by what happened in that instance.
Rowan, I guarantee you, if they'd been from Palestine, first, the crowd would not have booed, they would have cheered. Second, he wouldn't have said, I'm going to treat you like humans. And third, he wouldn't have given a shout out to any Israelis in the audience.
You're right,
absolutely
Ben.
Guaranteed. Hey, I'm almost out of time, but I've got to ask you about Dan Andrews in Beijing. And I want to show you Dan Andrews arriving on the red carpet. It's not just that he shakes Xi Jinping's hand. Have a look at how far away from the Chinese dictator Dan Andrews is when he extends his hand. Have a look at this.
澳大利亚前州长安德鲁斯
Welcome to China. 我来自澳大利亚。
联合国副秘书长李军华
Have you ever seen someone so eager to shake someone else's hand, Rowan?
Well, I think he was trying to slip something into his hand. It might have been one of those secret Labour handshakes that they had down at Sussex Street. Or it may have been, I think he might have been trying to slip his CV into his hand. Because let's face it, if you know, in some dystopian future, if China would rather take Australia without a war and just turn us into a vassal state, which I studied Chinese at university, Chinese history, and that's kind of the history of China. They just surround themselves with vassal states and have a governor who does their bidding. But you had to choose the right governor to be the governor of Australia in a vassal state dystopian future. And who better than Dan Andrews? What's he got on his CV? We're in Tiananmen Square. Well, Dan Andrews is the only Australian leader to ever fire rounds of rubber bullets on his own people. So that's good. They could have ticked that one off. Dan Andrews was also the most draconian during COVID at forcing people to obey all their instructions and so on. So I think Dan Andrews was saying, look, Z, if ever, there's a job going for a governor of the vassal state of Australasia, I'm your man.
Rowan Dean, it's always a delight to talk to you. Thanks for being on the program tonight.